Welcome to my channel. My name's Jason. The next few videos, we're going to be talking about the differences between plant protein and animal protein. Are they equivalent? Are there differences? And are there issues if we agree with the vegan agenda and really eliminate all animal sources of nutrition and run the world on a beautiful plant-based utopia? Is it possible? What are the logistics? How are we going to acquire protein? How are we going to acquire fat soluble vitamins? How would society need to be restructured if we're going to adopt completely plant-based protein? Will we run into trouble? Is it realistic? Let's discuss that in this video. I'm going to share screen. Today there should be a recording as well with JD, not a live stream, a pre-recording where we're going to go through the anabolic effects and protein and muscle synthesis. Is it the same with plant protein as compared to animal protein? Is it as good as building muscle? And this is an important thing that we need to consider if we're going to adopt the vegan utopia, which they wish to push. And the reason we're talking about this isn't because we really care about individual vegans, although I hope for the best and for a diet that helps everyone thrive. But the reason that we are speaking out, JD and me as a team, and developing an awesome friendship and wonderful collaboration, the reason is that this is not only about vegan delusions, this is about the globalists and the whole elite stakeholder capitalism, basically large corporations, very rich individuals in cahoots with national governments, and national governments handing over authority and more power to these globalist organizations, World Economic Forum, for example, and the typical master of the douchebag philanthropy, Bill Gates, being one of the worst. All right, let's check some stuff out here. We're going to go into greater detail about this study that looked at animal protein versus plant protein, so-called rich foods in both categories. And in the study, it shows that they're not metabolically equivalent. JD will look at an article that he posted to me that I think is a really important thing to go over. Although it may be a little dry and extended, I think it's extremely important that people start having the facts straight so that they can speak out just like the vegans have done and start being a voice piece for the truth. Because if this vegan utopia is pushed, we will have significant famine, starvation eventually. We'll have wide-scale nutritional deficiencies, increasing birth issues at birth, all sorts of nutrient deficiencies in the parents will give the next generation, and you can imagine the next one after that, a suboptimal generation, all because of the food that we eat. It used to be control the oil, control the countries. Then after there was a saying, control the food and control the people. Now I would say that still applies, but if you control the data and the social media, you control the minds of the world. So dietary protein is needed to supply these essential amino acids, the building blocks, okay? The building blocks of protein, and therefore the building blocks of a lot of our our cells, our everything has protein. But we're going to focus especially on muscle and how protein affects muscle. Thus, food, protein, quality, and quantity and quality are both essential for good health. Now, don't forget, we're going to look, okay, and we're going to see that plant protein is often incomplete, meaning it doesn't have the whole wide spectrum of amino acids. Some amino acids we just need to acquire from the diet. There's some that we can create, we can fabricate, but there are some that we need to acquire through our diet. And the best of the plant-based proteins, some of them technically have all of the spectrum of amino acids, but some in really pathetic amounts. And we're talking about the ones that we could consider, whole. And there's also the question of the digestibility. Animal food, the science is out, okay? The debate is over. Animal food is easily digested. The irony that people say that plant protein is easier and that animal food like meat is hard to digest, giving that age-old lie of going for a colonoscopy, finding that hot dog that you had at the ballpark a decade ago lodged in your colon. Never happens. In fact, people poop all sorts of kale and leftover undigested corn. I never popped out a steak. It would sound painful as well. So the 20 to 2025 dietary guidelines for the Americans published an ounce equivalent. So 1 ounce of animal food compared to a wide variety of 1 ounce of plant proteins. Ounce equivalents recommendations to help consumers meet protein requirements with a variety of protein food sources. Now, don't forget, okay, this whole idea of a balanced diet being a wide variety. This is economically motivated. The majority of healthy cultures before the modern era had a few food staples. It was what was grown and what was available around, and this varied drastically geographically. We had the horse and buggy. We didn't have transportation through boats, airplanes, trucks, okay? And big difference with this idea of wide variety. Okay, do not tell me that somebody has an unbalanced diet if they're eating a small variation, small amount of different animal foods, but that are proven to have the best digestible protein as well as micronutrients like vitamins, water, and fat-soluble vitamins that are in adequate proportions and that they are the proper version of that vitamin. We will see on plant products vitamin A, but vitamin A, true vitamin A, is retinol. And that just doesn't exist in the plant kingdom. What we have is beta carotene, and multiple times I've showed, not just verbally, but with the actual studies that show that beta carotene in the public can vary from 65 conversion to active vitamin A right down to a measly 5%. And this percent, this ability to use beta carotene into the active form of vitamin A through plant sources can vary all throughout your life and also be affected by your health, as well as, even if you're healthy, perhaps genetically, you're just not a good converter. Vitamin A deficiency is something serious, especially if you are going to produce a child. Okay, we see severe vitamin A deficiencies in pig studies. Pigs are not born with any eyeballs. Okay, it's serious, and we're just talking about vitamin A. Then we got D3 in animal food, but the plants have D2, not readily used as easily by the body. So we have some B vitamins that are missing, especially B12, right? Vitamin C, Yes, it's abundant in plant foods, but if you're actually eating liver regularly, uh, technically it does have vitamin C. Now, we don't have to be extreme, and I'm not advocating for the other extreme of veganism to have a carnivore diet where you're obsessed about getting vitamin C only from liver, trying to prove a point. Yes, a nose to tail carnivore diet, eating ruminant animals as well as organs, does supply everything we need. We see, I've mentioned publications about saturated fat not being an issue. The science behind that for the last 70 years has been very deceptive and again pushed by the corporations as well as medical system and pharmaceuticals. For the longest times, eggs, a superfood, was encouraged not to be consumed because of dietary cholesterol. Decades and decades of misconceptions, all in the name of the infallible science community, to come and realize, oh, you know what? Dietary cholesterol has really nothing to do with cholesterol. And it just goes on and on. Yet, when we return to social media, to current publications, these truths are still not being acknowledged. And the age old, decade, almost 70 years now, these lies keep on being pushed. So, no, when it comes to nutritional science, cherry picked, okay, studies, even within meta analysis. Oh, we're going to study 10 studies and we're going to do a meta analysis, see overall what they're showing. But there might be 50 to 70 studies out there. Who decides what to choose as a study? Are you going through all 50 or are you cherry picking what you wish to show? Science is a method. Hypothesis, you pose the question, you isolate as much as possible other variables. You can do randomized control studies. You must be as detailed about your methodology, and then you come to your conclusions based on the results collected. That method is an extremely good method. However, you have scientists and they have their bias and they have their motivations. Do you actually think that a college professor or a scientist that makes his career on getting funding for his studies for publication, do you think that him going against the mainstream narrative for the last 70 years, do you think that him putting him or her, they, them, zim, zer, whoever the person is, do you actually think, okay, that if they go against, okay, the narrative, that they will receive funding, that they won't be ostracized by their colleagues, that funding just might not be happening? No, I don't think that would happen at all. I think that I'm just delusional. Science, and then there's scientism. Do you know that truth is not found only by science? Science is a accessory to truth. It is an important, okay, way of learning about the physical universe. Hence, physical science, right? Okay. So the dietary guidelines for Americans were published, and they compared an ounce equivalents for animal foods compared to plant foods. The recommendations to help consumers meet protein requirements with a variety of protein sources. Variety, a large gamut. Okay. For example, the dietary guidelines for America present a variety of ounce equivalents in protein food groups, stating that 1 ounce of meat is equivalent to 1 cooked egg, is equivalent to half a cup of red kidney beans. My goodness, look how packed with protein these kidney beans are. 1 ounce of meat, and all you need is half a cup of red kidney beans? Are you serious? Only 1 tablespoon of peanut butter? Holy smokes. Wow, my mind is blown. Maybe I should reevaluate my stance on this situation. However, the DGA do not currently address the issue of differences in protein quality. So over here, these guidelines, let's say that vegans will jump on, will bow, and will push, okay? They will use this as the only truth, historical precedent, cultural history, um, other science that has been published. No, this one works for their agenda. Therefore, this is what they're going to show. But the dietary and American guidelines say this, say that. Oh, but the nutrition and dietetics that is funded by Pepsi and Hershey, well, they say that a vegan diet's amazing. Look who feeds, whoever, feeds you, okay? People do not bite the hand that feeds them if they're not complete idiots. However, the DGA does not currently address the issue of differences in protein quality associated with varied food sources. In general, animal proteins have higher protein digestibility and a better essential amino acid profile relative to dietary requirements. Means that these amino acids, all of them, are ample, okay? And because they have those essential amino acids that the body can't produce, okay, everything is available to build what your body's made of. Not only muscle, but organs, cells, hormones, the enzymes, everything in your body is a mixture of fat, cholesterol, and protein. No carbohydrate has anything to do with building. It is fuel. It is strictly fuel. The amazing, show of how they lack depth is, if you'll notice in discussions, debates, vegans always talk about the calories that can be produced by these subsidized rice, corn, buckwheat, beans, legumes, how they produce these calories. But the minute that these things are fed to a certain extent to animals, there is a loss in calories. 5,000 calories go in and it goes into the ruminant animal, comes out hypothetically 3,000. Hey, you lose more than half. The problem is that the nutrients that did not exist into the input, those plants, now exist. And these nutrients are essential. And these nutrients, in their active, bioavailable form, are found primarily in animal foods. There's nothing lacking. The plants, things get complicated. However, the DGA is not currently addressing the issue of differences in protein quality associated with a variety of food sources. Okay, so we talked about that. Talked about the quality, meaning how much each of these amino acids, how much is in there, because technically you have just a very small amount, and that can technically be called a complete protein within the plant kingdom. Digestibility, very important. Animal foods digested very easily. Plants, as I said, never pooped out a sausage or an egg yolk, but you poop out all sorts of corn and a variety of typical vegan poop components, and we'll leave it at that. A new manuscript recently published in the Journal of Nutrition investigated the physiological response to various ounce equivalents of protein food sources and found that the consumption of ounce equivalents, which is what a vegan will use, they'll use calories, they'll use these kind of metrics, never going deeper in looking at bioavailability, amino acid makeup, nutrient quality. They'll stick, again, ounce to ounce, calorie to calorie. That's it. Because it is not, it's a convenience. Because if they go any further than that, then they're working against their own ideology and debunking their own ideology. And obviously, you can't do that. especially when you're loyal to a cult such as veganism. All right, so protein food sources and found that the consumption of ounce equivalents of animal food sources resulted in a greater gain in whole body net protein balance above baseline than the ounce equivalents of plant-based protein food sources. All right, equivalent ounce per ounce, right? Gram per gram, whatever you want to call it. Okay. But when it comes physiologically, okay, the ability physiologically, biologically, biochemically to use this, assimilate it, and to get um, a gain in whole body net protein, just repeating that, is not the same when you compare. So the University of Arkansas and colleagues randomly assigned very small sample base, 56 young, healthy adult participants to one of 7 food interventions groups. One of them, 2 ounces of cooked beef sirloin, 2 ounces of cooked pork loin, 2 cooked eggs, half a cup of red beans, 2 tablespoons peanut butter, 4 ounces of tofu, and 1 ounce of mixed nuts. Prior to the onset of this study, participants followed a 3-day dietary weight maintenance, and participants' net whole body protein balance was assessed using a stable isotope tracer infusion protocol. Big words. The changes from baseline following the consumption of the different protein food sources when compared with the baseline value for that individual. Overall, investigators found that animal-based protein food sources elicit a greater anabolic response than compared to plant-based protein food sources. Whole body protein balances increased more in the beef, pork, eggs groups, and all of the groups consuming plant-based food sources. Um, Whole body protein balance increased more in the beef, pork, and eggs group than all of the other groups consuming plant-based protein. All of the plant-based proteins in equivalencies, right? Um, big difference, big difference physiologically. So the magnitude of the whole body net balance response was correlated with the essential amino acid content of protein food sources. And the researchers concluded that ounce by ounce equivalents of protein food sources as expressed in the dietary guidelines in the America are not metabolically equivalent in terms of either the anabolic response or the caloric value. And this should be considered as the dietary guidelines develop approaches to establish healthy eating patterns. The study is quoted here. Our research illustrates that animal-based protein foods, such as beef, eggs, pork, plant-based, kidney beans, peanut butter, tofu, mixed nuts, cannot be considered to be equivalent or a substitute for each other. When developing healthy dietary patterns, given their unique physiological effects, while it's well established that animal protein can more easily provide essential amino acids than the plant protein foods, our study also indicates that eating animal proteins such as beef, pork, eggs may lead to an increase in protein synthesis, which has been shown to have benefits such as improved satiety and lean muscle mass. We can go through looking anecdotally at the amount of just vegan YouTube influencers that when you look at their muscle mass from younger ages and especially more prominent as we get into 40s and above, a very apparent issue of sarcopenia, which is muscle loss. Sarcopenia has a serious effect on the quality of life of older people, okay, as they age. Now, let's say they say that, sorry, the phone's ringing. Let's look at buckwheat, for example, okay? We're looking at 1 cup of buckwheat. All right, 2 seconds, guys. we're looking at 1 cup of buckwheat. And that 1 cup of buckwheat offers a lot of carbohydrates and only 5.7 grams of protein. Now, even if this is complete protein, that's a whole cup. You're not even getting 10 grams of protein. And let's say it's complete protein, it's only 5.7 for a 168 grams. Now, the total carbohydrates is 33 grams. So you're also at the same time with these plant proteins packing in a lot of carbohydrates to also get your protein. They're always combined to a certain extent. So you have no choice but to consume relatively high amounts of carbohydrates with a very, very low amount of protein when you look per gram. When you compare that, for example, to a steak, that over here for 100 grams. Now, don't forget, this was, I think Josiah called, Michelle, just called. Here is 100 grams, and we had compared buckwheat 100 grams. So 100 grams of buckwheat with 33 grams of carbohydrates, glucose, that needs to be consumed just to get 5.7 grams. When we look at the steak, we see that we're getting 26 grams with only 100 ounces. We're also getting 288 calories for that 100 grams. I'm not sure if the buckwheat shows calories. Yes, it must have calories here. Macronutrients, 100 grams, total carbohydrates. 100 grams of raw buckwheat. The calories is not sure. Anyways, the whole point is not only that, is that if we're looking at the buckwheat, are we getting any vitamin A? No. Any vitamin B? No. Any vitamin C? No. D? No. Okay. K? No. Are we getting any significant amount of polyunsaturated fats in a good ratio of 6 to 3? No. Any monounsaturated fat, which everyone acknowledges, that's something that's prominent in olive oil to a certain extent, is healthy. So you're going to be eating 1 cup, 2 cups of buckwheat, giving yourself already 66 grams of carbohydrates, and you've just passed 10 grams of protein. So you have to function with a high carbohydrate meal. And this goes if we look at such things as rice, forms of rice, same thing for 100 grams, okay? Again, a whopping amount of carbohydrates, barely any fat like usual. And you're eating 100 grams of rice, okay? So how much protein are you getting? Again, about, let's say 3. Let's round it to 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12. Let's have 4 cups, okay, of rice to get to 10. So I had 4 cups of rice, and how many cups? 3 cups of the buckwheat. I've gotten 0 nutrients, almost some minerals. And so, guys, how are we comparing this? How can we compare this? How can we compare the nutrients? Look at the amount of these plant proteins. We're scarfing cups and cups. I mean, we'd have a bowl of all sorts of grains, buckwheat, rice, beans, soy chunks in there, just consuming it. Carbohydrate consumption going up, going up, going up. Where are you going to get the fat? Where is the essential fatty acids? How are we going to build, anything with the lack of fat-soluble vitamins that are found in the animal fat? It's not looking good for the vegan utopia, guys. It is not looking good. Show me the science. We're going to look at here, for example, the anabolic response. And we're going to cut this after this. Again, I think it's going to be worth really saturating our knowledge, focusing on one thing at a time, instead of jumping around, talking about veganism here, about the nutrients, a little bit here about the climate, throwing in some other completely different topics. Let's go through as much as we can in the next few videos, as well as live stream. All right. So, and then we're going to end the video there. Babu, babu, babu. Love you. So there's a global trend. There's a global trend of an increased interest in plant-based diets. This includes an increase in the consumption of plant-based proteins at the expense of animal-based proteins. Vegans, again, Jeffrey acted as if like, what are you talking about? The egg and the milk and the livestock and beef, industry are heavily funded and supported and pushed, and everyone, what are you talking about? Everyone, you hear red meat's bad, avoid saturated fat, avoid cholesterol, try having no meat Fridays, try and adopt plant-based meals during. You look in the publications, how do psychological peer-reviewed publications about decreasing meat consumption in men, meat consumption reduced, plant-based. Lower postprandial muscle protein synthesis response when compared with the ingestion of an equivalent amount of animal protein. The lesser anabolic properties of plant-based versus animal-based protein may be attributed to differences in their protein digestion and amino absorption kinetics. Okay, kinetics means kind of like movement. Okay, potential energy, kinetic energy. When you're holding something, it has potential energy. When you release it, the kinetic energy allows for movement and stuff like that. So it's just saying the mechanism, the dynamic mechanism of protein or amino acid absorption, as well as to differences in amino acid composition between these protein sources. That's when we look past the grams of protein to the amount of specific amino acids. Most plant proteins have a low essential amino acid content, and they're often deficient in one or more specific amino acid, such as lysine, methionine. However, there are large differences in amino acid composition between various plant-derived proteins or plant-based protein sources. So far, only a few studies have directly compared the muscle protein synthesis response following the ingestion of a plant-derived protein versus a higher quality animal-derived protein. The proposed lower anabolic properties of plant versus animal-derived proteins may be compensated. So here is what they would suggest. What if they're like, yeah, you know what, like, we're looking here, they start acknowledging, well, I mean, it is considered protein, but you realize how many freaking cups of this plant stuff you got to shove down your mouth to get protein, ounce per ounce, cup per cup. big difference. We're seeing whopping 25 grams per cup of certain animal foods of protein. We're getting complete proteins that are like 2.5 grams per cup. You literally have to eat a huge bowl of this. And that's for the few that are considered complete. If not, you have to mix varying different protein sources from plant in the same meal to have all of this wide variety. Imagine, good thing we know now what to mix: pea, rice, and a little bit of this. We're now it's a complete protein. So how many cups of this? How many cups of that? Are you going to be consuming about 5-6 cups per meal? Packing in tons of grams of carbohydrate and still not acquiring any substantial or significant amount of your essential vitamins for that day. So the proposed lower anabolic properties of plant versus animal-derived proteins may be compensated by one, consuming a greater amount of the plant-derived proteins or plant-based protein sources to compensate for the lesser quality. So remember, vegan utopia, no more ruminant animals, all sources of protein, of fat, of nutrients, of minerals, everything is going to happen with plant-derived proteins and nutrients. However, now that we remove all the animal protein, we have to compensate for that, or else there's a huge lack. Vegans are actually acknowledging now that most of the soy is going for oil consumption, that they are using the leftovers to feed animals, which isn't even natural, and that should not be blamed on animal foods, nor should it be. Look how broken the system is that we just recently, for the last 100 years, created. It's so broken and destructive. So we should, never eat animals, because look how broken it is. We won't just stop feeding them grains and let you freaking vegans chomp on cups and bowls and cups of these things. Vegans even say if we remove the ruminant animals, then we barely have to be able to produce any soy. I mean, okay, so tell me, those fields and fields that are offering, instead of 25 grams per cup of protein or offering 2.5 grams per cup, you don't think that you're going to literally have to have 10 times more of any plant crop, 10 times to meet the amount of availability of protein that you're trying to push through plants. Consuming a greater amount. Okay. Using specific blends, a little bit of pea, a little bit of buckwheat, a little bit of soy, and just, blend it into a smorgasbord of plant-based paradise. Using specific blends of plant-based proteins to create a more balanced amino acid profile. Or, hey, that's a solution to everything in the vegan utopia. Why don't we just fortify the plant-based protein? Why don't we just synthetically add, these synthetic amino acids? So supplement. Let's supplement the plant-based protein that is not complete. Supplement, fortification. That's the only reason that vegans are even able to talk about this insanely delusional method of feeding the world. It's only because of supplements, because we're fortifying the crap out of cereal and breads and stuff like that. That's a recent thing, very recent thing. So when an omnivore comes with some solutions, points out that we're really off course with the plant agriculture. We're not taking the manure for the fields, and things are just not making sense. You guys could be way more economical. Let those animals be grazing. Let's build the topsoil. We've said this to the point of nausea, but everything just goes right through the vegan head. I no longer really respond by trying to prove myself in the comment section with vegans. I'll make a video. You watch the video. They can watch the video because you'll repeat the same thing over and over. And 3, 4, 5 years down the line, you'll be in the same comment section trying to copy and paste the same damn thing with them presenting exactly the same copy paste stupidity. Don't waste your time. If you want to make a change, be a content provider, create content, and spread the truth. Join our community. Join our future open panels where we will go through, find out the truth, and start spreading that through networking and collaboration. Farmers that have content online, carnivore, keto, omnivores. And this is what I'm looking forward to. And I need your help to subscribe, press notifications, start following JD from Garland Farms, as well as my channel. And let's get down to business, affecting some change. And you can do that in your own personal life too, by getting off your butt and not making excuses about, I know grass fed's better, but I don't have the money to buy that. My grocery store doesn't offer it. If at all possible, and you live in an area and you've searched, the last 100 kilometers radius, 60-mile radius. If you find a farm, go and seek out and find out if you can purchase a whole cow. Find out if you can divide that cow between 3 families, between 5 families, whatever. But we can do that. We have to stop finding excuses, because the farmers that are doing regenerative grazing are being squashed. Okay, they are the enemy of big corporations. We need to try and keep these people running before it's too late. However, if you're sick, fat, and fed up, and it's already an overwhelming relearning process and quite a big change, and you have been eating a standard American diet at your grocery store, just start eating the grocery store animal food ASAP. While you're doing that, you're learning the process. Start trying to fine tune and start trying to become an activist for a healthy, regenerative, grass-fed movement by getting off your butt and going and seeking that. Okay, because it's true in the end. Encouraging mass-produced grocery grain-fed beef at the expense of supporting ecologically sustainable methods. Enough said. So fortifying the plant-based proteins with specific amino acids that are deficient. At least are acknowledging deficiencies. So clinical studies are warranted to assess the anabolic properties of the various plant-derived proteins and their protein sources in vivo in humans, and to identify the factors that may or not may not comprise the capacity to stimulate postprandial muscle protein synthesis rates. Such work is needed to determine whether the transition towards a more plant-based diet is accomplished by a transition towards greater dietary protein intake requirements. Down here, similar fortification of plant-based proteins with amino acids, methionine, lysine, and leucine. How about, some selective breeding of plant sources to, GMO, right? We'll just have, consumption of greater amounts of plant-based protein sources. Okay, so again, listen to what the vegans have been saying since JD brought up the whole accurate portrayal of soy meal, of oil consumption, and the idea and the claim that the vegans say that, well, if you stop feeding all this stuff to the livestock, right, then we would be able to produce so much less destructive monocrops to feed the world. They claim that when they have to completely now maintain the consumption of protein that was lost by the elimination of livestock farming. Here it says that not only that, it's not going to be an equivalent amount. The consumption of even greater amounts, meaning more soy, right? Because if you remove the soy, you're still producing the oil that's in all of the middle section foods that you consume, right? If you remove the animal protein, you still have to fix that deficit in protein. It has to be plant-based, and that means it's a lot more volume to get the same amount of grams, and we have the digestibility and the bioavailability issues. Not to mention that you're also consuming within there a wide variety of anti-nutrients, hormone blockers, and phytochemicals that are defense mechanisms, phytic acid that will reduce mineral absorption, among other things. There are a whole slew of useless and negative effects from these molecules. So you're stocking up carbohydrates because it's combined with these protein sources. It's deficient in any of the vitamins. It's deficient in the essential fats. Uh, what are we doing here, guys? Wakey, wakey. Smell the salt. Wake up from your consciousness. All right. Wakey, wakey. We're back in reality. Okay. No more vegan Disneyland. Okay, this is reality. Does it really make sense? Their claim that you can remove all of this animal protein and just feed the world with this nutrient deficient suboptimal protein that's attached to tons of carbohydrates, forcing you to have a high carbohydrate diet. However, then after they say, or you'll have to be ingesting multiple plant protein sources to provide a more balanced amino acid profile. However, the efficacy of such dietary strategies on postprandial muscle protein synthesis remains to be studied. Future research comparing the anabolic properties of a variety of plant-based proteins should define the preferred protein source to be used. So what they're going to try, I think, and do is I do not think that they are going to succeed in removing all plant protein, all animal protein, but they will seriously reduce the amount of animal consumption, right? Animal protein, and they'll make maybe blends. Like they'll be like, oh well, you can eat this processed or powder isolate of a mixture of a little bit of the Y and casein that we get in plant protein powder, and a large variety of plant amino acids and stuff like that. And you can supplement this. This is something that is fortified also with many essential nutrients, and this will be encouraged. Maybe they could put this in all sorts of the middle section foods. All right. That's it, guys.